A cozy local diner, the kind where everyone knows each other by name, was bustling with its usual lunchtime crowd. But today, there was an uneasy vibe. In the corner, an older gentleman in a weathered leather jacket and a long gray beard sat quietly, eating his meal. Nearby, 3 teenagers loitered, snickering. Suddenly, one of them grabbed his drink and laughed. The man, unfazed, simply sighed, as if this wasn't the first time. Across the room, a waitress clenched her fists. She'd had enough. The waitress, Clara, had been working at this diner for over a year. She knew the regulars, their orders, and their stories. The older man, known as Hank, was one of them. He came in every week, always polite, always tipping generously despite his tattered clothes. But today, those teenagers had decided to target him. Clara watched as Hank lowered his gaze while the teens laughed. One of them, a tall boy with a backward baseball cap, leaned in. "What's the matter, old man? Cat got your tongue." Another boy snatched a fry from Hank's plate and popped it into his mouth. The third, a girl with bright purple hair, pulled out her phone and started recording. "Say something for the camera, Grandpa," she taunted. Clara's blood boiled. Other customers noticed but stayed silent, unwilling to get involved. Hank, however, remained calm, his hands resting on the table, his jaw tight. He'd likely endured worse in his life. Clara took a deep breath and marched over. "Hey!" Her voice was sharp and commanding. The teens froze. "Leave him alone. Now!" The boy in the cap scoffed. "Relax, lady. We're just having fun." Clara stood her ground. "This isn't fun. You're harassing a customer, and if you don't leave right now, I'll make sure you do." The girl with the phone laughed. "Oh, what are you going to do? Call the cops?" Clara leaned in slightly. "Or I could call my manager and have you banned from here forever. Or I could call your parents. I'm sure they'd love to see this video you're filming." The girl's smirk faded, and she lowered her phone. The boy in the cap rolled his eyes, but stepped back. "Whatever. This place sucks anyway." As they turned to leave, the boy grabbed Hank's drink and dumped it onto his lap. The cold liquid soaked into his worn jeans. The teens burst into laughter before finally walking out the door. Hank sighed and reached for the napkins. Clara quickly grabbed a clean towel from behind the counter and handed it to him. "I'm so sorry about that," she said. Hank gave her a tired smile. "It's not your fault, kid. Some people just don't have respect." Clara clenched her jaw. "They shouldn't have treated you like that. Are you okay?" Hank nodded. "I've been through worse." He patted her arm gently. "You've got guts, standing up for an old biker like me. Not many people would do that." Before Clara could respond, a voice called from the back. "Clara, in my office. Now." Her stomach dropped. The manager, Mr. Thompson, stood in the doorway, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. She gave Hank an apologetic look before following her manager to the back. Inside the office, Thompson shut the door and turned to her. "What were you thinking?" Clara frowned. "I was protecting a customer." Thompson shook his head. "You were threatening customers. Those kids have parents who come here every week. We can't afford to lose business over something like this." Her chest tightened. "So you're saying I should have just let them bully him?" Thompson sighed, rubbing his temples. "I'm saying you should have let me handle it." Clara's fist clenched. "But you didn't handle it. You just stood there." His face hardened. "That's enough. Hand over your apron. You're done here." Her breath caught. "Wait, you're firing me?" Thompson nodded. "Effective immediately." Clara's heart pounded as she stared at him in disbelief. She'd worked hard at this job, showing up on time, covering shifts, treating customers well. And now, for doing the right thing, she was being thrown out? She felt the sting of humiliation as she removed her apron and placed it on his desk. Without another word, she turned and walked out, her hands shaking. As she stepped back into the diner, Hank was still there, watching her with concerned eyes. "What happened?" he asked. Clara forced a small smile, even as her eyes burned. "I just got fired." Hank's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Clara gave him a reassuring nod. "It's okay. I'll figure something out. She walked out of the diner, the cold air hitting her face as the door shut behind her. What she didn't know was that in less than 2 hours, her life was about to change forever. Clara sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel. Her heart was still racing, fired just like that, for doing the right thing. The unfairness of it burned inside her. She wiped her eyes, took a deep breath, and tried to calm down. She needed to figure out what to do next. Bills were due. Rent was coming up. She couldn't afford to be jobless. Her phone buzzed. A message from her best friend, Sarah. Hey, want to hang out later? Clara stared at the screen for a moment before replying. Got fired. Not really in the mood. Almost immediately, Sarah responded. What? Are you serious? I'm coming over. Clara sighed. She appreciated Sarah's support, but right now, she just wanted to be alone. Before she could put her phone down, there was a knock on her window. She jumped, then turned and saw Hank standing outside her car. His weathered face looked more serious than before. She rolled down the window. You okay, kid? He asked. Clara forced a small smile. Not really. Hank nodded like he understood. I didn't mean to cause you trouble. I appreciate what you did in there. Most people would have looked the other way. Clara shrugged. It was just the right thing to do. Hank studied her for a moment. Then, without saying anything, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a card. He handed it to her. If you ever need anything, call this number, he said. Clara looked down at the card. It was plain, just a phone number written in bold black ink. No name, no business, just a number. She frowned. What is this? Hank smiled slightly. A lifeline. Before she could ask more, he patted the car door and walked off, his heavy boots echoing against the pavement. Clara watched him go, then glanced at the card again. She shook her head and tossed it onto the passenger seat. Right now, she needed to focus on finding another job. She drove home, her mind racing. How was she supposed to explain this to her landlord or her mom, who already worried about her? Maybe she could pick up some shifts at the grocery store. Maybe. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of motorcycles, loud. Multiple engines roaring in the distance. She glanced in her rear-view mirror. Her stomach dropped. A swarm of motorcycles, at least 50, maybe more, was riding down the main road. Their headlights pierced through the evening light, their engines rumbling like thunder, and they were headed straight for the diner. Clara pulled into her apartment complex and got out, still staring in shock. She could hear the deep growl of their bikes even from here. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Sarah. Clara, go on Facebook now. Frowning, Clara opened the app. Her feed was flooded with a video. The video, the one the girl with the purple hair had been recording. It showed everything. Hank, sitting alone. The teenagers bullying him. Clara stepping in, fearless, refusing to back down. And then her manager firing her. The caption, Waitress stands up for elderly veteran, gets fired for it. This is wrong. Clara's heart pounded as she read the comments. This is disgusting. Who owns this diner? They need to answer for this. We stand with Clara. Someone give her a job. Where's this place? Let's show them what happens when you mess with the wrong people. Her hands shook as she scrolled. The video had over 200,000 views in just 2 hours. The comments section was exploding. People were furious. And then another notification popped up. A live stream. She clicked on it. It was from someone standing outside the diner. The camera shook slightly as the person spoke. You're not going to believe this. There are hundreds of bikers pulling up right now. This is insane. The camera shifted and Clara's breath hitched. The entire diner parking lot was packed with motorcycles. Over 500 bikers, all clad in leather jackets, some with matching patches. And standing tall at the front was Hank. Clara's phone buzzed again. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello. A deep, steady voice responded. Clara? She swallowed. Yes. The man paused and said, We've got your back. Her stomach flipped. Who is this? He chuckled. Let's just say you made some new friends today. The call ended. Clara stood frozen, her heart racing. What was happening? Clara's hands trembled as she lowered her phone. She could still hear the roar of the motorcycles through the live stream. This was unreal. Hundreds of bikers. For her phone buzzed again. This time it was Sarah calling. Clara, are you seeing this? This is insane. Sarah's voice was breathless, full of excitement. Yes, I'm seeing it, Clara said, pacing her apartment. But I don't understand. Why are they there? Sarah scoffed. Are you kidding? You stood up for one of their own. Now the entire biker community is standing up for you. Clara sat down, trying to process it all. The video, the outrage, the bikers. It had all happened so fast. A new message popped up from an unknown number. Come to the diner. She hesitated. Should she go? Her stomach churned at the thought of facing her former boss. But curiosity gnawed at her. She grabbed her keys and rushed out the door. As she pulled up near the diner, her breath caught. The parking lot was completely packed. Rows of motorcycles lined the street. Bikers stood in groups, talking in low voices, their leather jackets gleaming under streetlights. Some had their arms crossed. Others were on their phones. But they all looked serious. Clara parked a block away and walked toward the diner, her heart hammering. People noticed her immediately. Heads turned. Conversations hushed. And then someone clapped. Then another. And another. Within seconds, the entire crowd was cheering, whistling, applauding, calling her name. Clara felt her face flush. She had never had this kind of attention before. She spotted Hank, standing near the front of the crowd, smiling. She approached him, still feeling dazed. What's happening? She asked. Hank chuckled. What's happening is that you stood up for me, and now they're standing up for you. Before Clara could respond, a deep, gravelly voice spoke up behind her. This her? She turned and saw a massive man with thick beard, wearing a leather vest covered in patches. His presence alone was intimidating, but there was kindness in his eyes. Hank nodded. Yep, this is Clara. The man extended a hand. Name's Bear, president of the Iron Legacy MC. Clara shook his hand, still overwhelmed. Nice to meet you. Bear smirked. You've got guts, kid. Not many people would have done what you did. Clara glanced around. I didn't expect all of this. Bear's face darkened. Well, your boss messed with the wrong people. Before she could ask what he meant, the diner door swung open and Mr. Thompson, her former manager, stepped outside. His face was pale. He looked at the sea of bikers. Then at Clara. Bear's voice boomed. Is this the guy who fired you? Clara swallowed hard. Yes. The crowd murmured angrily. Thompson held up his hands. Look, I didn't mean... Bear stepped forward. No, you meant exactly what you did. You fired her for protecting one of our own. You let those kids harass an old man because their parents spend money here. He gestured to the bikers. Well, guess what? We've got money too. And we're making sure no one eats here again. Thompson's eyes widened. Wait. Bear wasn't finished. Hundreds of us. Thousands across the country. You think this is bad? Wait until every biker in America knows what you did. The color drained from Thompson's face. Please, I can fix this. Hank stepped beside Bear, his voice calm but firm. Then fix it. Thompson swallowed hard. He turned to Clara. If I give you your job back, will you stop this? Clara blinked. Are you serious? Yes, you can have your job back. A raise, even, Thompson pleaded. Clara stared at him, then at Hank, then at the crowd of bikers who had come here for her. A slow realization settled in. She didn't need this job. She had power now. She lifted her chin and said, No. Thompson's face fell. What? Clara crossed her arms. I don't want your job. I want an apology. To Hank. Publicly. Thompson hesitated. But when he saw the way Bear and the others were glaring at him, he knew he had no choice. He turned to Hank. I'm sorry for what happened today. It was wrong. The bikers murmured in approval. Clara wasn't done. And you're going to make sure those kids never set foot in this diner again. Thompson nodded quickly. Of course. Yes, absolutely. Bear smirked. Good choice. Clara felt a strange sense of triumph as she turned to Hank. Ready to go? He smiled. Yeah, kid, let's get out of here. As they walked away, the bikers cheered. Clara knew her life had just changed forever, and she had no idea what was coming next. Clara stood among the roaring bikers, feeling something she had never felt before, power. Not the kind that came from a job title or money, but the kind that came from respect. She had stood up for Hank, and now an entire community had her back. Hank patted her shoulder. You did good, kid. Bear smirked. More than good. You made a statement. He turned to the crowd and raised his hand, silencing them. All right, we've made our point. No one's eating at this place again. They don't respect one of us. They don't get our business. A wave of agreement rippled through the crowd. Several bikers removed their helmets, shaking their heads at the diner like it was a lost cause. Clara glanced at Mr. Thompson, who stood frozen in the doorway, his face still pale. His diner had just been blacklisted by a community he never even realized had this much influence. Hey, Clara. She turned to see Sarah rushing toward her, phone still in hand. You're officially famous. Your story's trending on Twitter. Celebrities are sharing it, and, oh my God, businesses are offering you jobs in the comments. Clara blinked. What? Sarah thrust her phone in front of Clara's face. Sure enough, her notifications were out of control. Messages flooded in from restaurants, coffee shops, even a few law firms offering her a receptionist position. Asterisk someone hire this girl. We need more Claras in the world. Asterisk one post read. Before she could react, another message popped up, this time from an unknown number. Asterisk, call me when you have a minute. I've got a job offer that might be perfect for you. Asterisk, Clara hesitated. Who is this? She muttered. Sarah grabbed the phone. Only one way to find out. She pressed the call button and put it on speaker. After a few rings, a smooth, confident voice answered. Clara, glad you called. Who is this? Clara asked. My name's Sam Carter. I run a security firm. We protect high-profile clients, celebrities, executives. We saw what you did today, and we could use someone like you, someone with a spine, someone who doesn't back down. Clara's breath caught. Are you offering me a job? Sam chuckled. I'm offering you a career. Come in for an interview. We'll talk. Clara stared at Sarah, who was practically vibrating with excitement. Hank smiled proudly. She had walked into work that morning expecting just another day. Now she was jobless, famous, and possibly about to step into an entirely new world. Her life would never be the same. And for the first time in a long time, she was perfectly okay with that.